Good evening, friends, and you are watching Weekend at 5 with me, Navdeep Kaur Marwa. In today's Weekend at 5, we have Vicky Chan with us. She is a pharmacist and co owner of Unichem Pharmacy in Pakuranga. Apart from that, she is also a vaccinator. We talked to her more about her role and what is keeping her busy during this pandemic. Welcome to the show, Vicky.
Hey, how are you? Hello, everybody.
Very well. Hope you are doing well.
It's been a very busy, hectic 2 weeks for us, with the child vaccination and boosters as well. So yeah,
So tell me, since the pandemic has come in, how and especially last 8 months, how challenging they have been.
it has been challenging. We are one of the first pharmacies to provide COVID vaccination. So for us to have to set up the whole system, and obviously I think safety and just being professional and being able to engage with all different cultures has been a priority for us. Yeah, so that has been quite challenging, and you can imagine we're still running the other side of dispensing and services in pharmacies as well. So that has kept us really busy in different areas. The last couple of months has been challenging because we're doing more services like the rapid antigen testing,
Right.
for travelers, and also servicing people who can't access the vaccine pass. And obviously with the boosters and the child vaccination, that has added a little bit more pressure to everyone in the pharmacy industry.
Right. So tell me one thing when we talk about on an
Mm.
average, how many vaccinations are you doing just to begin with?
It does vary, because we were one of the first one, and we sort of built up a reputation that we do look after our customers well. I mean, like since last year when we first started in mid-June, I think we must be up to about like 45,000 vaccinations now. It does vary day by day, at the peak of lockdown when everyone sort of have a little bit of panic, some days we do up to 600, 700. But we also have a team that does outreach clinics as well,
Right.
so we can reach to sort of the roots of communities which sometimes have challenges going to the doctors or
Right.
engaging. So yeah, so our work varies. Yeah, that's why it also makes it interesting but challenging at the same time.
And tell me, especially now that you have to deal with children and their vaccination, and it's
Mm,
not easy, with children. So, how
yeah.
difficult it is first to, vaccine a child, and
Mm,
secondly, to talk to parents about the safety of vaccinations. And
mm,
I'm sure a lot of questions parents do have about, how safe are vaccines. And,
yeah.
with yourself, you can still manage, but when it comes to your kids, you need to be reassured of everything.
Mm. I think any parents, I think safety is paramount, right? I think you always put the best interest, for your kids first, no matter what. So a lot of parents would have done their research already. So they've read through different resources online, and they have sort of that evidence to feel that okay, yes, I would love to vaccinate my kid. And so then they would choose to pick, oh, should I go to a clinic or pharmacies that
Mm.
I trust, or the GP? So there's a different sort of options now. It's challenging in a way that because we are doing both boosters at our dose and the child. So in our particular clinic, we want to make it extremely safe that no errors or mistake can happen. So we separate the two space together. So we have a special child friendly space, so that have all sort of treats and things like that, but that also helps to prevent any potential errors of mixed up or any dilution errors and things like that. But I think the key is really communicating, right? I think kids between 5 to 11, they actually understand a lot. And
Right.
it's quite surprising when they come through to the clinic, a lot of them because they have been staying at home, so they understand what's going on in the world with COVID. So they I think it's having a child friendly sort of conversation. Oh, and asking whether they have got questions as well. And very often the kids do have questions for us. So I think it's sometimes it's addressing those for both parents but also with the kids as well. And
Right.
a lot of the time, I think it's just putting them at ease, right? Because even when you think about adults, when they come for vaccinations, they still feel like a certain level of uncertainty. So let alone a child. So I think it is important that like we have that sort of engagement and explain every step sort of on the way. Hey, like we're gonna put a bandage on, how it's gonna feel, and there's so many different things we do at our clinic as well, just to give them encouragement. It's quite, for a lot of kids, they haven't had a vaccination since like maybe 4 year old,
Right.
between like 11. So a lot of them like like even like either like don't remember or recall they have had a vaccination. So that fear can be quite real. There's some really brave kids though, I have to say. So it varies. So but yeah.
Right. And what about boosters? How many people are coming forward for boosters? Have you seen the numbers increasing since we are coming red light? How have you
Yes, I
seen?
think like that's why the last 2 weeks has been like super challenging, because obviously with the red traffic light, as well as like knowing the Omicron is like it's inevitable that it's going to be in the community, like so having that booster dose is important, but also like it's mandatory for a lot of professions as well, like the front line and things like that. And a lot of our elderly people or people have existing sort of underlying conditions, they have had their second dose sort of around that July August mark.
Right.
So they're the
Right.
people that's coming through now. So
Right.
yeah, so the last in January we have been very, very busy.
Right. So, do people who come for booster have questions, and do they also have concerns about booster shots? Because I know a lot of people have concerns whether they should get a booster, or is
Mm,
booster really
mm,
helpful. So, do
yeah.
you have to deal with such questions, and what are
Yeah,
your
so
answers?
like everyone that comes through, we still sort of like to do a follow up, like just like our second vaccination, we always ask how their experience with their first one and second one, what sort of side effects, and then sort of go from there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with booster shot, it's a little bit unpredictable, like everyone's body is very different, like a lot of people, a lot of my team didn't even respond much apart from a bit of heavy arm. But then like I did some vaccinations for some rest home staffs, like and they were telling me, oh, they've got like maybe a bit of swollen lymph nodes, some people get a bit of fever, but those are sort of the common side effects that we know we can expect anyway. and
Mm-hmm.
um and I think like sometimes coming through like for the vaccinations, by just explaining those expectations, people are not going to be surprised you know
Right.
mm, mm.
Right. So that is your way of dealing with people. You explain them everything.
Yeah,
What
and I
you
think it's just a lot of the time it's like having the information and knowing there's a plan. Like okay, if I get a fever, okay, actually it's quite normal. Okay,
Mhm.
or if it's mild, just rehydrate. But if it's higher than 38, oh yep, that pharmacist told me to take some paracetamol. Um,
Right.
yeah, so I think it's all about communication.
Right. And my last question would be, what are your tips for for parents who are getting their kids to get vaccinated,
Mm.
and for adults who are coming to get their booster shots done?
I'll start with the kids first. I think a lot of the time, depending, I think like kids have different personalities. So like I think parents always know their kids best. If you're coming with like multiple kids, like their siblings and things like that, sometimes you may have a more anxious child. So I always encourage maybe the more anxious ones go first, like but sometimes it's a matter of like maybe getting the elder sister showing to be the role model, and then showing the little brother. So it really depends on the dynamic and the personalities of the kids. But I think because kids are so smart this day, that I think like really having a bit of a talk and conversation pre-vaccination is really important. I think gone are the days that, okay, well, we need to hold her down or hold him down and then give him the jab. Like I think that's why like I think having a good meaningful sort of child friendly conversation is very important. Treats always works, I think, like like telling them like what, maybe they can get a little bit of a treat afterwards, and encouragement always help.
Right.
So that's mainly for kids. Booster, like I think it's very easy now. You walk in any sort of big COVID vaccination center or GPs or pharmacies, and you can get the booster. So I think like just making sure like your immune is ready, like you're 100%, and maybe on the Friday, on a day that like you're not gonna, like you can take the day easy as well. Yeah.
Right. And lastly, do you think boosters and these vaccinations going to be a way of life now? like
It's
probably for a few.
I hate to say yes, but I feel like almost because just with the nature of the vaccine, like the antibodies gonna sort of wear off over time. That I feel like if it's not a booster, it could be a yearly thing. The vaccine's probably gonna have to be remodified anyway with the mutation, just like our flu vaccinations each year. But yeah, I hate to say I feel like vaccinations could be a bit of a way of life going forward. But I think cross that bridge when
Right.
we get there.
Right. Thank you so much for your time, Vicky. Really appreciate it for
That's all
sharing your
right.
insights. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. Thanks for
Thank
having me. Thank you.
thank you. So, friends, that was Vicky Chen talking about why vaccination is important. And if you're getting your kids vaccinated, what are the things that you should keep in mind, how you should communicate and prepare your child for the same. And lastly, she did say that vaccination is the way forward. So we need to be ready for that. Thank you so much and keep watching weekender.com for all the latest news.